right? And they even show that. They're like, I bring back, and they show and he sweep the leg. You know what I'm saying? And all of that. You can see everything that made them what they are. And then you get kind of that right away. So, how your stocks doing, man?
Hello and welcome to Corner Comics, your mostly weekly comic book reading club. I'm your host Burkhoff. I'm joined by my friends. We pick a few issues each week, and then we share those issues with each other, and then we talk about those issues. My stock is doing okay. I plan to see it go this direction probably later on this year or next year.
All right. All right.
How are you guys doing today, and where can people find you on the interwebs?
I'll take it. I am quite merry and jovial today. Today been a couple days after Christmas, so I'm still in the jovial, merry spirit. Even though my colors are pretty darksome, I'm still happy. You can find me on the interwebs at emmanuelthestory.com. You can also find me on the Instagram at EM_MAN_YOU_EL. Lastly, you can find me at cornercomics.net. See you there.
Well, you can good to see everybody. I am very merry because 'tis the season. And you can find me at the following places. That's on Twitter at Rawless. That's at WALLRUSS. You can also find me at, where am I these days? BlackSuperheroFan.com. And you can also find me here at CornerComics.net.
All right. So we got 6 issues this week. I'm bringing the holiday cheer with my first selection, Archie's Christmas Spectacular 2020. This is a one-shot. It's got 3 little stories in it. And my second pick this week is The Brave and the Bold, number 28 from 1960. I'll get into why I picked that later. Russ, which 2 issues do you have?
I have, it's The Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes. It's just red shoes, but they have The Angels Want to Wear in the beginning by Virus Comics. And I have an old school I thought I'd bring up and see how it fared with you two. Dreadstar #1 by Epic Comics.
Emmanuel?
My first pick is Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel. It is a Marvel book. This is issue number 1 of 5, and this came out in 2008. My second issue is Black AF. This is issue number 1. This came out in 2018. All right. And by Black Mask Comics. I'm not mistaken.
Which we've had on before.
Yeah.
We've had another comic by the same artist, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the original comic just called Black. So this is sort of a spinoff in that universe.
All right, so jumping into it, my first pick, Archie Christmas Spectacular 2020. Like I said, I wanted some holiday cheer. I just wanted something easy and not too demanding to read, with simplistic art and something that just gave you those warm fuzzies inside. So this issue has 3 stories in it. The first one is about a guy that's buying up all of the Christmas trees in Riverdale and turning them into toothpicks because he has no holiday spirit. Humbug or HM Bug Industries and Archie and the gang intervene. The second story, if I'm not mistaken, is about an elf that still wants to be an elf, but he doesn't want to be an elf anymore, but he still wants his powers. And then the last story is Archie trying to get everybody a Christmas present, but messing it up horribly. What did you guys think about this?
I am not much of an Archie fan, but I am entertained every time you guys bring an Archie book. This is a character that I wouldn't necessarily seek out on my own, but if presented to me, I would be entertained, and I was today. The art is definitely Archie. This is the type of art I would see as I'm at the checkout stand and you have those impulse buys.
Yep.
You'd have an Archie book right there. Never did I ever pick one, but thank you for presenting it.
Never
Um,
did I
it
ever.
this it definitely had a Christmas feel. This gave me the warm fuzzies, the quintessential Grinch story, somebody that didn't like Christmas because of something that happened way back in their past Christmas. And then now this is rectified and they're filled with Christmas joy and glee and want to spread it to the rest of the world. I like that. That trope is popular because it works. It still plays to the human concept of Christianity, or not Christianity, of Christmas, of like that loving and giving, and this is a present, so I'm going to give it to you, and giving feels good, therefore I'm going to give it, I'm going to receive it, all that.
It's a Hallmark
Um,
card.
exactly. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. These other issues or the other short stories, they worked. They're zany. They're Archie like. Good old Archie having 4 or 5 women in which to choose from, and all the women are on his head about like, oh Archie, but they still love him. This worked. This worked. It achieved its goal. It didn't oversell. It just this is quintessential Archie. Nothing more I can say about it.
Okay. Uh, I am sort of an Archie fan from way back, meaning I read a lot of Archie comics. I did pull some of them from the aisle just to have something to read, and it was entertaining and it was quick. And I actually am a fan of the Archie superheroes, which I hear are getting ready to make a comeback. The Shield and a few others. The Fly.
The New
They had a whole.
Crusaders.
What's that?
Is it the New Crusaders?
The Crusaders. Yes, I was a
Yeah.
big fan of Crusaders. Same art and everything else, but just in that universe. This, the Archie Christmas Spectacular, I did not find it to be spectacular.
Oh,
I found it to be fair to middling. I didn't get, and yes, Christmas is there and alive in this, but nothing really happened in the book that gave me warm fuzzies. It's just a book. It's there, sitting on the mantle. Might as well read it. But did I walk away with any like great memories or feel goods? That didn't happen for me. And I have had Archie books that did. You know, I think someone brought one where Jughead went to the future or something like that. I was like, okay, this kind of went somewhere.
Yeah, that
right?
was me.
Yeah. So, and that I was like, well, where is this going? Right. But nothing, there's no plot line in here that isn't resolved in the next few pages. There's nothing here. There's no mystery. There's no nothing to make me wonder. It's just nice. So it's not a bad book, but I can't say what it is that I would say you need to read this book so you can see this. I didn't experience any of that. So for me, it is a pass.
Okay.
It's not a bad book. It's just I didn't see anything to make say you should read this. I didn't achieve that.
All right. I will ask you guys this question then. What other comics on the shelf in the last 2 weeks were Christmas themed?
You mean the Justice League and Final Winter?
yeah.
Right. There's a whole series. Every week there's like 3 books in the Final Winter saga, and they're fighting an ice monster that that got empowered by Superman's Fortress of Solitude, which happened to be probably at the North Pole. And so now he's back causing havoc across the entire Earth, and they're bringing back Black Adam and Wonder Woman's mother and all these other characters to fight this evil ice demon. Yes, very Christmas.
I think DC was very holiday spirit because they have DC's very merry multiverse.
Yes.
Where you have on the comic issue, you have that rabbit that has superpowers. It's like the
Captain
Superman
Carrot.
analog, Captain Carrot. Yes, and they're fighting like this snowman. It's very festive. I don't think I saw any of the Marvel.
I don't think Marvel did any Christmas stuff. Yeah,
No,
which
but
is
DC will always do some kind of spectacular. Like if I were to choose something that had, like if that was the theme that we required, then I would have brought that
okay.
DC Christmas Fun Special
Hey,
because it also introduced different versions of characters. There's the non-binary Flash character,
yeah,
different things like that. So that brought something interesting and different to the table. Uh, uh, I would have brought that if you said, okay, I need a Christmas book. That's what I would have brought. And I would have done it quick before Emmanuel picked it.
I wouldn't ever
Thank you.
mandate a theme like that,
You
but
could suggest.
um, no, yeah. The only reason I picked this is because it was one of the first books that I saw. I was like, oh, Christmas themed. This is coming up. Let's do it. So, all right. Well, I'm glad you guys got at least something out of it, if not any warm fuzzies. Um, moving on, my second pick is The Brave and the Bold, issue number 28 from 1960. I don't think that there's any way that we could probably read this book except digitally. It is that old and also that collectible. This is the first appearance of the Justice League of America. So this is the first time that we ever see them in print. Um, I thought it was really interesting. So you had posed the question, Russ, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago
Mhm.
about find an Avengers book or something of that nature where they all get together. All of my research led me to the Avengers were essentially created because they had to keep up with the Justice League. So I then went back and looked for, well,
DC.
where does the Justice League first appear, and sort of dug into that, the Brave and the Bold. Interestingly enough, Starro, which goes back to one of our first episodes ever, you brought out a book where Scott Snyder decided to bring in Jarro, which was the spawn of Starro.
He's still
Um,
around talking mo mess too.
so yeah, I wanted to bring this on, and I like digging into these old books, especially given the fact that we can read these digitally and not have to worry about like trying to find a physical copy or because these are old and disintegrating and they're going to be gone one day. And yeah, what were your guys' thoughts about the first ever Justice League book?
I want to comment on fucking Snapper. Snapper.
Of course, he,
This
he shows
is,
up in the Flash story, so
oh gosh. I hope this is the one and only appearance of this hippie beating it. It's not? Oh
Oh, he's
gosh.
canon, dude.
Oh
He's
gosh.
canon.
Snapper.
Snapper
Snapper.
Carr.
This beatnik.
He is DC's Rick Jones. You know who Rick Jones is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, he's DC's Rick Jones. Rick Jones keeps coming up, right? Rick Jones started with the Hulk, then later
Mhm.
on he got paired with Captain Marvel and all this. So yeah, Snapper Carr will never die. He even
God.
got superpowers in one year where he could snap and teleport to wherever he wanted. He had to snap to do it.
wow.
Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but whenever I saw Snapper Carr's father, he seemed very displeased with life. And in my mind, there's this backstory of Snapper Carr's father. Every time Snapper would do or say something, walk into the room, Snapper Carr's father's just
Yep.
exhausted. Like he just loathes that he has a son that's a beatnik hippie, and not hippie in a good way either. Just like, hey, daddy, yo, that car's groove. Okay, so he was one of my favorite parts of the issue simply because I hate him so much. I love to hate him, but the issue itself is great. It's great that this is the first introduction of Starro. Um, I knew that that was the first time that the Justice League had teamed up, but my only point of reference that comes to mind is the Great Frontier, that movie, the Justice League movie where they're fighting Starro and they all individually come together. I don't think I've ever read this issue, so thank you, Matt, for presenting it. The artist definitely speaking of its time. The slang, daddy-o, and
Daddy
all
O.
that
Yeah, they
is definitely reminiscent of that time.
really trying to get into that segment of the market, right?
Yeah, it. It was an enjoyable read. Just for Snapper Car alone, I didn't know that Sorrow had the ability to make our terrestrial or our subterranean stars become a copy of him. I didn't know that, but that was interesting
Back
to
then,
learn
you
more
could
about
write
him.
anything.
Yeah,
Well,
true.
there's a whole page on the starfish family, which actually is like out of a science book almost.
A
Hmm.
flash fact, and that I definitely appreciated. They don't do that anymore, or if
No.
they do, they don't do it as often to give flashbacks, real life scenarios, real world math and equations, and incorporate them intelligently into the story. So that I appreciated as well. This is a good read. It was fun. It was a nice throwback. I appreciated the read.
Okay. Um, if you'll notice in the book, the Justice League is absent of Superman and Batman,
Yeah.
and Flash is in charge. It
Yeah.
would seem, right? I thought that was interesting because why would all these people listen to Flash? But then again, you got no Superman and Batman, so and they're not going to listen to the woman because at the time that this was done, right?
Right.
So but I would think John Jones would be the leader because he's the wisest, but that didn't happen here. He basically was the Superman. Uh, uh, this story has been retconned at least 5 times.
Okay.
Right? You'll find this version of this, and then you'll find instead of Wonder Woman, it was Black Canary, or you'll find that Superman and Batman were in it. Now, if you have the on your screen, you notice go to the last page, and you'll notice all of a sudden there's Superman and Batman. They were
Um,
never in anywhere else in the book.
Right.
And all of a sudden, on one panel only,
well, they were at the very beginning. Like Superman's fighting off some meteors and or asteroids, and Batman was doing something else.
yeah,
Gotham.
doing yeah, somewhere in the Batmobile.
Right.
But they're not doing any fighting. Justice
No.
League, they are. You called them a Justice League, like the first meeting of Justice League. But where did these guys come in? Right? You bring them up like they're going to be part. It's like false advertising. Like,
It almost is, yeah. You even on the first page, it shows
mm-hmm,
Batman and Superman as part of the Justice League,
mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, okay. And then you get through, and it breaks it down. Like each hero gets their own little mini story,
Vignette. Yeah,
yeah, where they fight Starro and then come together. But
because Snapper Card gets way more screen time than Superman and Batman.
this is true.
Way
Yeah.
more. uh, uh, so I noticed that. Um, and I have read it differently. Like if I think if you type in first meeting of the Justice League and just first meeting, just going to try it. Excuse my maybe whoever's listening to us would do it as well. And then I'm just going to click on images to see what shows up, and you'll find a lot of different thing. Anyway, there is different versions of this story. It has been because we've had at least what 3 crises,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So it's been rewritten and rewritten, and then they realized they was like Wonder Woman couldn't have been around back then, so they put Black Canary in because they need another woman. Then they were like, well, if this is Starro is fighting the whole world, then Superman would have been there. You know what I mean? So it's
Oh yeah.
Superman, right? So if the whole world is in danger, there's no way Superman is not going to handle his business and get over there. Batman too, because he thinks he needs to be in charge. So I feel like this. I like the story. I like the idea of it. It is classic in that it's a first. I put in the notes. I expected there to be an ad for Hostess fruit pies or whatever somewhere in here. Like Snapper Card be like, this adventure is much more tastier with Hostess fruit pies. I expected something like that to happen. It didn't happen. We got some kind of Superboy something that showed that instead. But this was the time, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it If you care about the history of Justice League, if you care about what made them want to create the Avengers, this is something at least to read.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think that just throwing all of their popular heroes together was enough that Marvel was like, oh shit, we have to do that too.
Yep.
You know, um,
It was because at that time, Superman was selling well, Batman was selling well,
right.
right? So putting them together, it should be just a slam dunk, right?
Yeah.
Now, does Green Lantern still have mental powers? Does this?
What do you mean mental powers?
I know what panel you're talking about. He does not have mental powers. He was, from what I can tell, was getting shot by a ray by Starro. So Starro is trying to disrupt his mental abilities. It's
Well, he
not
also
it's not explicit, but yeah, I had to
he
look at
said
that like three
probing the
times.
minds of the Air Force men with my power ring revealed that Sorrow's deputy stole atom bomb, or
Yeah.
stole an atom bomb. So
Yeah, I would say that's a one of type of thing. I
okay,
mean, perhaps the ring can probe, right? I don't know. Because what is the limit to the Green Lantern ring? What is it that the Green Lantern ring cannot do, if you can imagine it? So
I
maybe,
Yeah, I don't know.
but he doesn't have that power. And if he's probing it for weaknesses, he's also not being bulletproof at the same time. So I figure he can't, because you can't have 2 or 3 darts in your head at one time. So I think that would, I, I don't like it. I don't agree. It doesn't show up anymore. But at that time, if you write a comic, right? Remember back then, Wonder Woman didn't fly. Wonder
Yeah,
Woman can fly now.
yeah, and her robot plane, not
Yes.
the invisible jet.
No, no, no. It was plane because jets, later. Robot plane that she
Ro-
can control.
Yeah,
Uh, uh, uh,
I will say, Green Lantern is slow as fuck too. Like
yes.
he's right there as Starro's about to attack this plane, and like
Mhm.
he could have stopped it, but
And
instead,
especially with Green Lantern is much more a cowboy and how he's normally written. You would think he would have jumped in and say, I don't need you guys. I got
or
this.
like shoot his ring across the sky. You know,
right.
like no, the plane battles Starro for a good 15 minutes before before he realizes what's happening. He's like, oh, that plane's
Oh,
going down.
oh, what about Flash pushing Snapper Carr's car instead of
Yes,
just carrying him at super speed? Right? Why did he have to push his car at medium speed where he could just carry him there at super speed?
for the flex.
Speedsville, dude. Speedsville.
Yeah,
Uh,
this was interesting
mm,
because it's typically the Brave and the Bold with just one or two, but now it's the whole Justice League, and everyone kind of has their time to shine, with the exception of Superman and Batman. This was nice. I appreciated this.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I think this is the first time I ever put together John Jones
mhm.
with John Jones.
Yes.
Has that always been like that?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
So he took the name. Well, it just so happened that he took the name of a real person named John Jones, who happens to be a detective.
Okay.
But the play was his actual name. What sort of was that also? I don't know if they've been rewritten a few times. I don't know if the original John Jones was killed and he sort of found him and took over
Yeah.
for him, continuing that identity or not. What I liked about when Martian Manhunter later on was sort of revamped in the beginning Justice League is that they were scared of him because like every issue he would have a new superpower,
Okay.
right? So he's bulletproof, right? And he can fly, and he's got mental powers, right?
Right.
And now he's got invisibility, and now he's got shape changing, and now he's got right and
Intangibility.
yeah,
Yeah.
intangibility, right? You're like, damn, how do you stop this? What can this guy not do? Right?
Right.
Because in theory, except for his power level, he's got everything Superman has and 5 more powers to boot.
Yeah.
And John Jones still has his powers under the red sun. Right? So in theory, he should be, here's a question. Wonder Woman versus John Jones, who wins?
I'd say John Jones.
Yeah.
I would agree.
And his one weakness, which is fire, was only revealed to be a mental block, at least
Yes.
in some incarnations.
Yes.
So he doesn't really have
At
any
first it
weakness.
was a physical, and then more it stymied him and then later on there was a story, and I don't know if you guys care, but they found out that the reason the Martians have this mental block is because the Guardians of the Galaxy or somebody like that realized that they would morph or become even more powerful beings that would be unstoppable. So they put this block in them to stop them from becoming those beings. And at one time, that block was removed from Martian Manhunter, and he turned into something that even Superman alone couldn't stop.
Wow. Okay.
That's cool.
All right. Any final thoughts then on The Brave and the Bold, number 28?
Keep it snappy.
All right. Speaking of aliens, Russ, you want to get into your first pick?
Yes, this is a virus comic. My goal this time was to come up with a few comic companies that we don't sort of play in those space. So this first one is it just says red shoes, but in parentheses, the angels want to wear my red shoes. It's virus, so there's generally some type of horror in virus comics, I find. Uh, and before I give away any of the plot, what do you guys think?
This is a heavy metal comic for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, aliens, right out the gate. I was interested, and then it goes to just this average, everyday guy going to work construction. Maybe a bit of an alcoholic. I dug this. I was able to have a sense of immersion in the story. So the way that it's done, the way the panels are laid out, and the way that they outline the story, I thought was really well done. It takes you in sort of a day in the life, and then shit really changes, and there's a twist. It's got that that Twilight Zone heavy metal element to it. So I dug it. I thought the art was a little flat. The art could have been a little better, but overall, it was there was enough action, especially in the fight scenes. There was still movement to the panels, and there was you could tell what the hell was going on between the characters. It wasn't messy in any regard. I'm really curious to see what happens because the second issue opens up, and if you had given me the second issue, still would have been interested, but I would have been like, what the is going on here? The first issue is a decent introduction, but this being a 5-issue miniseries?
I don't know. Doesn't say here. But only 4 issues are out so far.
Yeah, there's only 3 or 4 issues out, so yeah, I was immediately interested. This is a buy. I'm gonna go see if it's still on the shelf at my shop. Yeah, Manuel, what do you think?
I liked it initially. Um, the aliens themselves are different. They're visually different. And I like the fact that they're not all existing in the third, like in 3D, in 3 dimensions, and in the same space and galaxy and universe as Earth. And then they have to transition, they have to go to that subspace or go to that dimension and recruit. That definitely appealed to me. It's looking at it from a different perspective. It's not the same aliens that we know of with the big giant heads and the big eyes and the gray, small body. This is a different take on that. I appreciated that. I appreciated the origin, and the aliens themselves have like this war going on because they're trying to flee from something. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
Then it got to the like possession or the recruitment of this character. It raises a lot more questions, which is a good thing because that means I have a vested interest. That means I'm somewhat engaged within the story. But it just took a weird turn for me. I'm still going to read the other issues, but it didn't quite go where I thought it would. And that's a bit disappointing because the direction it did go in, I'm like, I kind of don't have as much affinity for this direction as what I anticipated in my head. But I'm still interested. I'm still going to read the next issue. This is a definite solid read for me. The art itself wasn't really all that great, in my opinion. The storyline again, is interesting. I didn't think he was going to be an assassin, so
Yeah.
that came as a surprise. Or a hitman for hire, not necessarily an assassin. Hitman for hire. Um, yeah, and the fact that he is, I think they made mention of the fact that he is not just your typical. He's not black or white. I think he's of another race. So that's interesting. Um, and it did make a lot of mention to that. It's just kind of like, hey, this guy is not black. He's not white. He, yeah. So that
He's
was interesting.
he's definitely got a mullet, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Full
Yeah.
on. Everything that's wrong with a mullet, he's got all of it.
Yeah, he's quintessential badass with the mullet, and one of those guys that walks around with the mullet. You don't want to say anything to him about it because you know he can handle business. So, so yeah, this was interesting. Question mark. I'm interested, um, but I might not stick with the ride.
Okay, fair enough.
I would say, Emmanuel, if you give the second issue just the first couple pages, you'll be like, okay, I'm in. Like, I need to see what the hell happens.
Okay.
So,
So for me, the red shoes, which he wore red shoes.
right,
For me, the idea of having red shoes is because you're going to step in blood and you don't want to get them, right? Because if you wear white shoes, that's a problem, right?
right,
The red shoes to me mean murder, right? There's something there about. So I kind of figured this going in, this guy's going to be a murderer. What I liked about the character is blue collar guy really adored his wife, who adored him back. And he really was willing to work and do whatever else to have the life that they want, right? This is the guy you tend to root for in almost every story, right? This is a guy who's not a genius. He's not rich. He's not super skilled. Maybe I do one thing very well, and that's kill. Maybe that's it.
right.
But I like that if you take the aliens out for a minute, right? And they're out for most of the book, right? They're in the very beginning and at the end.
Yeah,
If you take the aliens out for a minute, this is a relatively interesting guy in that he is really trying to do something for his wife, who really, you know what I'm saying? When you look at that home, that's the home we all want to have, right? A loving wife who's looking out, you care about her, you adore her, she adores you, you can't wait to see her again. This is the life you want. This is the life most people dream of having, right?
yeah,
That once they get rich, they realize they wish they had this life, you know what I mean? And so he had that and he appreciated that. And then he went out in the world and realized that in order to keep that, I will do whatever.
yeah,
Right. And I'm not even mad about it. This was got to get done because I'm having this life. Right. So I thought the character was interesting on that level. I'm going to agree. I didn't think the art was great.
yeah.
It didn't, certainly did not draw me in. It was serviceable, but I felt like it was just a level below where it really needed to be. But I liked the character. I liked his life. And then, you know, then there's aliens on top of all that, right? And I didn't get that the aliens want to wear my red shoes in the beginning. I didn't get that what was really happening as far as they wanted to sort of ride him in a way or use him. I didn't get that fully until we got close to the end. I was like, okay, because you didn't know, like that fight when there's blood and cracking and cocaine in the air and
Yeah.
everything else, right? I'm like, whoa, this is not where I saw this going,
No.
right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I liked it,
Yeah, he
right? I
goes.
was like,
He
Go ahead.
goes from being the character that you really are like rooting for to somebody you're like, I don't know about this guy.
right?
Like, this is what he's doing right now is kind of detestable. Like, why the fuck is he, even at
Yeah,
this,
and so I like that. I thought the book was entertaining for that respect. And then if you want more, there's another level. It's like watching CSI for a week, right? You watch and you see what the big bad is at that level, but
Yeah.
there's some bigger overarching big bad, right? That's also there. And for this is the aliens. And so this may be enough. Just watching his life killing might be a decent enough book, right? Low
Right.
key Punisher, right?
Yeah.
Not bad. And then we throw some aliens on top of that. You're like, and so, do you want to go with that? Do you like that? Do you feel that? So I thought there was some potential here. I do hope that they improve the artwork. Probably won't. But the story was decent. It drew me in, had a lot of elements that I could say, here's what I liked about it, right? Here, I liked the fighting. I liked his life before. I felt it. They gave me enough panels that I felt his life at home was
Yeah.
something worth fighting for, right? So I didn't. I get why he would do it. So he didn't get out of character when he was killing for me. It was just like I got to do what I got to do to have this life, and I understand that. Especially if you're a blue collar guy, your options are limited in theory, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I got to off a couple people to get it done, hey, it's mine or yours. Guess what I pick, right? And then the aliens are like, we need a badass, and they didn't pick a guy that is interesting. They didn't pick a cop. They didn't pick a serial killer. They picked this dude with the red shoes.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so there's also probably something more there. Like, what are the aliens really looking for? Right. And I thought I might be curious enough to go into future series or future episodes or issues to find out specifically what they are looking for and why they chose him. Right. And, but I will say this, he was a man without fear. They could choose why they chose Hal Jordan. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? He didn't have any fear. Even when he was losing and thought he was over, he kept trucking. So I thought there's a character that's interesting enough, that has enough that I like, and then enough that I don't like, and I don't know. And then we got aliens, which could throw another monkey wrench into it. And I thought, okay, there's a lot of potential here, and there's enough in this book to seed you to say maybe there's something more for you. So, Matt, you're going to read issue number 2, at least.
Yeah. I already started reading issue 2. I'll probably jump into 3 and 4 later on
There we
today.
go. Job done.
So,
And Emmanuel, you may try issue 2, maybe.
I made sure I should too. Yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm
I
asking.
say give it 2 pages, and you'd be like, okay, I'm in.
See,
All
he
right.
says
Yeah.
only give it 2 pages. So I feel like in this case, what is at least a read? What do you say?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm gonna buy it. So I'm gonna see if my
Ooh.
shop's got it.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to read it. And if those 2 pages have enticed me enough, I may just buy.
All right.
Okay. A buy minus or a read plus. I'll go with that. All right. Any final words on what is it? The angels want to
shoes.
wear my red shoes?
Nope.
All right, moving on. My next book is a classic, even though I use the word classic lightly because I think it's a classic, or especially because Matt thinks it's a classic, doesn't mean it's a classic for me, for anyone else. But Jim Starlin is, to me, just the dude can weave interspatial galactic stories like crazy. This is a Silver Surfer Thanos kind of writer, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is not the first showing of Dreadstar. Now, Dreadstar, for those who don't have the visual, and I've even seen an issue where he's met, Dreadstar looks like Green Arrow with a beard, exactly like him. Right?
Yeah.
He looks exactly like a Green Arrow with the whole gold whatever goatee. There's even one book where he showed up in a DC comic and was wreaking havoc, and everyone thought he was Green Arrow, even though he wasn't shooting arrows because he looked just like him. So that's the visual of this character. Before I get into more, tell me what you guys think.
Manuel.
Sure, I'll go. I, having no prior knowledge of Dreadstar whatsoever, loved this comic book. I love this issue. It's reminiscent of ElfQuest only in the fantasy and just the novelty of that. Like, I have this interesting affinity for this now Dreadstar, even though it's the first time I've ever read an issue for it. Like, this guy is my guy now. I'm hoping he doesn't die because that's been kind of my that's been my MO as of late. All right, but yeah, Dreadstar, this is a good comic. I like how they did the backstory of the Catman, how they came about, how they were genetically altered race for war, but then they took to farming. They were peaceful, and he's the last of his kind. This was well written, and the plot, I get it. These two factions, you have politics versus religion on a on an intergalactic scale. This is good. I could see I can see more of this. I mean, they should make more of these. I'm sure I'm late to the party. This has like some long existent fanfare, but this was great. I really appreciated this, and I'm going to read more.
Yeah. So I was uh, familiar with Dreadstar. Not I don't know all the backstory. I haven't read all the comics or anything like that. But yeah, they. So what's interesting about the version that we read. This has been re-released, I think, in is now published by Dynamite. But the one that we read was the original Epic Comics version, and Epic Comics was an imprint that was started by Jim Shooter of Marvel. And he was working. So there's a story in the very beginning where Jim Shooter talks about the truth about Dreadstar, and he tells the story about how he met Jim Starlin, and basically, I guess what happened was there was a disagreement with one of the editors, and how Jim Shooter got to know Jim Starlin was due to a disagreement that Starlin had with one of the editors, and he left Marvel like in the 70s. And so when Jim Shooter finally ascended and he became editor in chief, he then courted Starlin back to Marvel. But the only way that he would do it is if he was able to do his own thing, and that is what Dreadstar is. And so I thought that was really interesting. And it's kind of cool that you get that one page little story at the beginning.
I go ahead.
Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was concerned. Okay, this is the right amount of pages for a comic. You know, some people tend to bring a large amount of pages, and
Yes.
some other people tend to not like it. Um, but there was a lot of reading here, and
Yeah,
I
it's
was
extremely
concerned that
verbose.
the
Yeah.
reading would turn you off. It's certainly vital to the story and to the plot. You really get like you read this one issue, and you almost feel like you get almost a novel. You get a lot here, a lot of story,
It
and not
feels
just a visual. Go ahead.
it feels a lot like the way that some of the 70s Uncanny X-Men comics were,
Mhm.
because those were notoriously verbose too. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of descriptions. There's a lot of history and backstory that's going on. Um, I like it. I like the art. Like Emmanuel was saying, it does have that kind of ElfQuest feel to it.
Mhm.
Um, I like the design of the characters. I do like the whole swashbuckling aspect of it. So it's a space opera, but it's kind of a pirate tale as well.
Mhm.
I mean they are space pirates basically. Um, yeah, I dig it. I think I brought an article maybe a few months ago. Jim Starlin's redoing Dreadstar, or he's bringing Dreadstar back,
I
and
hope
did
so.
did a Kickstarter for like a new round of comics that he's doing, and so yeah. If I ever get any extra time, I will dig into the hundreds of issues of this that are available. For
There you
sure.
go. So, but also, Emmanuel, so this is not an ongoing book, meaning it's not going on right now.
Mhm.
But there are probably hundreds of issues. Malibu Comics did a Dreadstar. I think this one is the first comics one. And then there's Dreadstar The Beginning, which is a trade paperback. I think 3 trade paperbacks that was done by Dynamite.
Yeah.
So if you care about this character at all, if you're feeling him, there is enough to keep you busy. And it's probably going to be, I don't want to say hard to find, easy, maybe easy to find. It's not, I don't know if it's as collectible as, say, the first issue of the Justice League or whatever. So you might easily be able to find this book. I'm almost positive you'll find it on Comixology, because where else would it be if not there?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
if
Which
you're interested, Comixology Unlimited has I don't know how many issues they have, but I think at least the first 5 or 6 available.
Mhm. I
Which
kind
came
of feel
first?
like Guardians of the Galaxy wanted to be this, not the movie, but the series,
I can see
because I
that.
think this started it. I think this was the big space swashbuckling opera. I don't know what came before it, unless you do what is it, Warlord of Mars, John, whatever,
Well,
John Carter, Warlord, huh?
Adam
Yeah.
Warlock, I guess, was
Adam Warlock.
yeah.
Adam, but again, doesn't Jim Starlin have a say in that?
Yeah, well, that was
Right.
his thing, and that was what that was the disagreement that he had. It was the
Mhm.
editor interpreted something that he was like, no, it's supposed to be this way, and he just said, "All right, f you, I'm gone."
So
Um,
this is the guy that can and does write these type of epics very well. So Jim Starlin is someone I would recommend to anyone as a writer. You must read like whatever he does, right?
So in
But
terms
go ahead.
of Darklock and Deathlock, which came first? Because they look very similar. I
Okay,
think they
well,
have,
Deathlock is DC,
yeah.
right?
I, th-
Darklock is what? A whole nother. Let me see. I don't know. I don't connect them. So
I want to say that because Starlin's an artist as well.
mhm. Yes.
Um, well, without too much silence of us just looking shit up on the internet.
Yeah. I don't know.
um,
I don't have I don't show them. Remember that this is its own book, right?
Mhm.
Its own universe. So it doesn't delve into DC. It doesn't delve into Marvel. This is its own universe, its own series. So it's easy to say. I feel like that if Jim Starlin created it, it's original. That would be my take because I don't really get that Jim Starlin really needs to copy anyone else. I think he's just that good a writer, right? That he can come up with his own.
yeah,
So I think if you have to pick who comes first, I'm going to pick whatever Jim Starlin did comes first.
Got you.
He's no one has ever accused him of copying ever, but I'm sure a whole bunch of people will accuse of people copying him.
for sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to say, so if you like it, there's a whole omnibus of stuff to read, trade paperbacks. If comic shops open back up, you can dig into crates and get this. And I think you'll really enjoy it and really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to Comic Cons being open again, where I can go spend where everyone else is walking the floor. I'm sitting on the floor next to the boxes, digging in the crates, filling my backpack.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Um,
Any final words on Dreadstar?
yeah, the cat guy, is his name Odie or Odie? Is that how you would pronounce it?
Odie, like
Because it's OEDI, I think is how it's spelled, right?
I won't say that I can promise that I'm going to get the pronunciation right because who knows, right? Uh, like Oedipus. So Odie.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's it. Any final thoughts?
Well, I said it all.
All right. Manuel, your first pick.
All right. My first pick is Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel. This is issue number one of six, actually. It's from Marvel. And this is one of the introductions, maybe not the quintessential introduction because this is 2008, but one of the reintroductions of Blue Marvel. This Blue Marvel character who is kind of Superman like. You know, he has amazing powers. He can go toe to toe with the best of them, and put them to shame. But his whole face and body's covered, so you don't know what race he is until this final battle. The whole issue isn't about that, but it does at the very end. It does um, kind of present that as a question and let you know what internal conflict this character has going on. What do you guys think?
You want me?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, as a fan of Black comics, of course, blacksuperherofan.com, One of the problems I've had in the major two comic book companies is every time they come up with a black character, it's really a remaking of a white character, right? Or it's a sidekick to a white character, right? So you got a black Captain America, but there had to be a white one first, right? You get a black Superman, but there had to be a white one first, right? You get a black Spider-Man, but there had to be a white one first, right? For me, Blue Marvel was the first time, the first unique character that wasn't an offshoot of somebody else, right? Especially in contemporary times. Because if you name your black characters, you can go back to Black Panther, which was a unique character,
Right.
right? But since then, how many unique black characters can you name that aren't offshoots or takeoffs? Mr. Terrific, there was a previously white Mr. Terrific, right? Everybody you name. Cyborg was unique, even though his name just means what? Man and machine. It wasn't, but he was at least unique, right? There
Yeah.
wasn't, so I give you that. But since then, you see how the long distance in between unique characters show up, right? For black characters, new white characters come out all the time, right? There was a black Captain Marvel whose powers were very different, right? And then they took the name away from her to give it to the white woman, but that's another conversation. But at least she was unique in her own thing, right? Uh, uh, Blue Marvel, Kevin Grievous created him. I've actually had conversations with a great guy. He also wrote those movies, Werewolves and Lycans. That was all his screenplay, his writing, and everything else. So he created this book, and I'm a big fan of him and his work, just in case he's listening. Uh, um, but so for me, here was a unique character. Yes, you can say it's kind of an offshoot on Superman, but there's not a Superman in Marvel Comics, right?
Yeah.
And anybody who's strong and can fly and wears a cape is automatically assumed to be an offshoot of Superman, right? You just can't get away from that. No, they're not allowed to be original. So I like that here is someone that created. Now, I didn't think when this came out and I read this originally, I didn't think he would last. I didn't think that he would be accepted in the comics community. I didn't think that he would, and he's still only somewhat. You don't see him in the Avengers, right? He's powerful than all the Avengers could probably sock Thor in the jaw. You don't see him in the Avengers, right? So that's a concern because why wouldn't you have him in the Avengers, right? He has started his own team. He started the Ultimates, right? And there's some other things that he's done. What I like about this character, which you may not all find in this book, is that he's smart like Reed Richards,
Yeah.
right? He's got all the powers of Superman. Plus, like Martian Manhunter, he has 7 other more powers, right? That you don't hear about in this book, right? He's also has longevity. He and the Watcher are friends. He and Submariner Namor are friends because he's been around that whole time, right? I thought it was interesting in this story that the world is not ready because it takes place when Kennedy was president.
Yeah.
The world isn't ready for a black guy with this level of power because we can't control him. So we're going to ask you to stand down, right? Now, this guy fought, even before he had powers, he fought in the war. He did all these other things. He was a soldier, everything. I wouldn't be standing down. You want me to leave? I'll go to Africa and be their superhero. That's fine with me, right? Or wherever you want. You don't tell me not to help people because I have great power. But I felt some emotional behind that. And I like that I felt something behind that. I didn't feel like this book in and of itself was necessarily great by itself, but I was excited about the introduction of this type of character with this power level and find that you could find a way to retroactively create him like he's always been around and not hypnotize everyone in the universe in time to say, like they did with the Century, who hypnotized the entire planet into not thinking the Century exists. I'm like, you're going a little crazy here. So I like the fact that they gave him a more terrestrial reason for him to have always been around. And I like the character because of that. This book doesn't give you all of those things I said. So what this book gives you is here's a new character with the power of Superman. It's original. That's black. That was told not to fight because he was. because the world found out he was. And I like that. So I read all of them for that reason. So for me, it's a buy, or really, I would buy the whole, whatever, the 4-issue miniseries or whatever it is, and put that on my shelf because that to me is something I should hold. So I feel a personal affinity and feel like, as a person who loves Black superheroes, truly loves them, this is something I should own.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Obviously, Russ, you've talked about Blue Marvel multiple times. He was one of your Super Seven, right?
Yep.
So for an all black superhero team, he would be one of those.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I thought this was a pretty interesting story. I thought it was interesting that it was set in the '60s, and that they started there. Like you were saying, I guess I didn't put it together when I was reading it that this was a way to canonize the character and set him farther back in the Marvel universe than when he actually appears.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I took it was, well, it's an uncomfortable topic for 2008. It's an uncomfortable topic for 2020.
Yep.
So let's throw it into 1960 because maybe it's a little easier to talk about then. To put it in that historical context, you can bring it up and have that story and say these things without it being in your face and something that's you have to deal with today, type of thing. And I thought that was a good choice and an interesting choice. But I think it could have worked if they had done it in 2008. It just wouldn't have been the book that everybody wanted to read, right? Because it is an uncomfortable conversation to have. I didn't like the fact that the U.S. government could tell him that he couldn't be a superhero.
Yeah, see, and I thought that I was like that writing that affected people who read it. I thought I didn't like it either. And I was like, that wouldn't have happened or whatever. But I felt something. And that writing made me feel something. Yeah. And I applaud that writing for that reason. I didn't like it either. I'm sorry to jump in.
No, because we've had conversations offline that are probably a lot more serious and more in depth than the stuff that we talk about when we're talking about comics. And this particular issue or this limited series brings up some of those things that we've talked about offline, which is what is the definition of an American? Because there's one panel where he stands up like with force and declares himself to be an American. He has an identity tied to the country that he served, and continues to serve as a superhero, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was interesting. It made me think about some of those things, and I think I still need more time to mill it over because this is a pretty heavy book, and it's not just the superficial. Oh, we've cleaned up the bad guys. Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I think there's some interesting decisions like with the superhero suit design that he wears, like the fact that his whole face is covered so you can't see that he's black.
Yeah.
He's that appearance is intentional because he just wants
he knows the world would be affected by this knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's heavy.
And it's interesting because think about he's be a superhero, but he knows he has to cover his face. He knows he has to do that, and a white superhero wouldn't have to be concerned with that. Think about the world we live in right now. If we finally got a superhero of Superman level, if he was black, would America embrace him?
Well, if he was the only one too, like that would be.
Yes. Right? Because then you got black people that are, like, hey, just like they identify with Obama. Hey, we could, and then there are people, because racism is alive and well, not just in this nation, but in the world.
Right.
Right. And, somebody like Fox News could just spin something on him and say, he's just trying to do this, or he's doing this, or what kind of person is he, and all of that. And then how would white supremacists deal with that?
Right.
which are real, actual, a real set of people that are out here in the world operating. So if you are, if you have that power, so Superman in his comic can get away without wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Could a black person with those powers do that in this world? I say no.
Well, that's the interesting juxtaposition, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Superman puts on a mask to be Clark Kent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this in this case, Blue Marvel has to cover his face to be the Blue Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of the other
even
way around.
even even watering it down a bit and say the Martian Manhunter doesn't actually look like the green buff character he looks like. His real self is, but he can't go around like that, right? He had to make himself at least look humanish in order to be accepted. And he still was worried about, in all the Martian Manhunter books about persecution and all these other things that would be worse. But the problem with being an alien is that you get the whole planet can hate you, right? Whereas if you're just black, just a certain amount of people will hate you. You know what I mean? Because black people can hate you as an alien too, right? Everyone can hate you
Yeah, right.
because you're not one of us. You're not human, right? So I thought this was a big issue. I thought it was strong. I thought it was daring. And I got to give Marvel a little credit for accepting it. And I got to give Marvel a little credit, or while they not bring him full on mainstream, even though it's in the latest Doctor Doom comic. Doctor Doom. Uh, um, while he's not an Avenger, which he should be, he's not a Guardians of the Galaxy, which he should be. He's not any of those things, and they haven't brought him to that. Uh, but they brought Hyperion, which is a white version with all those same powers, right?
Yeah.
And Hyperion is in the comics right now, right? With his own Marvel Justice League. So, but I give credit to Marvel for allowing this to happen and allowing it to stay part of their universe, even if they won't. Here's the question: can there be a Blue Marvel movie?
Oh, I think absolutely.
Well, yeah, I know what you're saying, but would there be some issue with it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Emmanuel, you agree with that sentiment? Here's the question: would it even get
I
made?
I mean,
I
Black,
would say so.
but yeah, Black Panther got made and did huge numbers. Everybody
It,
loved
it,
that
it
movie.
did. It did. But Black Panther also has part of the comics for 1,100 years or however long comics been around. Black Panther isn't Superman. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Black Panther is, you know, smarter Batman, right? Batman America,
It was
Captain Batman America, whatever you want to call him. So that power level isn't there. Uh, uh, but showing it would be daring for Marvel to create a book that would show that imagery. Like DC could do President Superman. They have a Kelvin Ellis. There's a universe, a DC universe, where Kelvin Ellis is a black person, but also President of the United States and also Superman.
okay.
Right? They could do that too. They could do that in a multiverse.
I think
Right?
it can happen.
Uh,
I
are
think.
you sure that's not just wishful thinking?
I mean, how would I know?
Yeah, right. My thought is I would like it to, but I would say, and granted, Marvel is really trying to bring up the diversity, right?
Well,
They're moving
yeah.
forward with Miss Marvel. We have Miles Morales, which is now almost, if not more famous than the original Peter Parker, right? There may be some countries out there that don't know Miles Morales yet, but with the video games and everything else, pretty much everyone knows. And Black Panther is big like that. I wonder though if you show, because it's one thing you gave, they met what Captain Marvel, the latest movie, they made her pretty much Supergirl, right? They pretty much gave her almost Superman level powers, which she shouldn't really be that strong, but she never was that strong before, except for the last decade or so. They just raised up her level. Uh, 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 and it's one thing to put a woman with that level of power. And I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm saying we know that the three of us are pretty much open to all subject matter, right? And however it shows. We are open to seeing it and enjoying it, right? How American used to say, for what it is, right? But the world is not us, right? The fandom is not us. And part of the reason Black Panther did well is because you got Black people all over the world, right? They may not tune in for a Superman movie, but they felt a kinship and affinity. And they went back and watched this thing multiple times. Black people were willing to do that. So, and I'm not saying that Black people alone made this movie the greatest thing it is, because they're only, 17% of America, 13%. But I like the idea of that it could be, and maybe he'll show up. This is my thought. Have him show up in an Avengers movie, the next big Avengers movie, for season 5 or whatever they're doing. Have some new heroes show up and have him be one of them. But I don't think they can do that anytime soon.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
I think part of the reason that Black Panther did as well as it did is because he's not. They're not taking a character like Nick Fury and making him black, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people had an issue with that when that happened.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing with Blue Marvels. Even people that are subconsciously racist or that don't really may say things like, "Well, I just don't like the fact that why can't they just leave him white or whatever." Blue Marvel exists as a black superhero that's not taking anything away from any other character.
Yes.
So if you're subconsciously racist, you can just ignore and be like, it's not really my thing.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And everybody is cool with that. You don't have to make a big stink about it or
Because
whatever.
I agree. I don't like blackening characters, like Black Jimmy Olsen for the Supergirl show.
Yeah.
All right, just create a don't. I got mad when Falcon became Captain America, and I've been calling him Falcon America since day one, because I'm not calling him. He doesn't have the powers of Captain America. He can't do that. And I was like, why are you giving that to him? It's not a mantle. And I knew that when they made him Falcon America, that ultimately it was going to go back to the white dude. It would, right? There's no way, right? Because that doesn't stick. As long as that character is still around, he's going to get it back, right? So I knew that Falcon America was going to have to give that up, even though he had to fight to even get that mantle.
Yeah, but even talking about the Falcon, at least he is a character that exists on his own.
Yeah, but he was only existed created as a sidekick for Captain America. In fact, the original history of the Marvel Universe before the retcon and all that, he was a drug dealer in the hood, and Red Skull, you know this, right? Red Skull messed with his mind so that he could join Captain America and fight with him. Red Skull changed him, brainwashed him, as it were, and then gave him the ability to talk to birds, just so he could be a sidekick for Captain America and ultimately betray him. The only purpose of the existence of the Falcon is the foil for Captain America, at best a sidekick. That was his own intention. He didn't do this on his own. He didn't become Falcon on his own. That wasn't his choice. It is now.
I mean, fair enough, but it's still,
But I agree. It's a
you
unique
get there.
character. I think there's some other characters that Marvel could do, like Night Thrasher. There's a few other characters that I think that would do well.
Yeah.
But again, going back to, we all agree that one of the things that make this unique is this is a unique character that is black from beginning. And we also agree that we don't like how government handled it.
Yeah.
But and maybe it's surprising and maybe it's not.
Another appeal why I chose this book was the art. Even though it's 2008, the art is still good. I liked it. What did you guys think about the art?
I liked it, didn't love it.
Yeah, so I like the art when they're out of their costumes.
Mm.
The people talking back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
like the facial expressions and the movement of those characters is good. I don't like the way that he draws Iron Man though. Like Iron Man looks horrible in this book, and the villain that they're fighting, he looks goofy. I'm not too enthralled with the way that he draws Blue Marvel either as a superhero. I really like just the regular human characters.
Yeah, I'm not a specific fan of the art. I don't think it's bad. It's not terrible. It does show what it needs to show. I don't think it takes away from it, but I would have liked something better.
I mean,
And part of this is the color issue too. The
well,
colorist kind of dropped it a little bit too.
yeah, there's certain panels, like there's one panel where you see like an old Cadillac, right?
Mhm.
I'm like, damn, that car looks good. Like he drew the shit out of that car. You don't see cars that look that good in other books, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to the art that's really impressive. It's just, yeah, for whatever reason, the superhero aspect of it I didn't like. Although Miss Marvel, she looks pretty good in this book.
Okay. Any final words on this?
I don't think so.
All right, let's move on, sir. What we got? What else you got for us?
All right. My second issue is Black AF,
I wonder
Widows
what the,
and
I
Orphans.
wonder what the AF stands for.
Probably as fuck.
Or actually fiction. Yeah, as fuck. All right. So this is issue number 1. This is 2018. This is a, how can I describe this? This story, I think one of you mentioned before, it has a lot going on. I
Yeah.
picked it because it has one of my favorite characters, even though I think this is just the person's moniker, their superhero name, but Anansi. What you guys think? I don't want to talk too much about it. I want to hear you guys'
You want to go,
opinions.
Matt, or me?
Yeah, I like this book. This is sort of like urban Naruto, I guess is the best way to describe it. Um, it is a cool book. So I like the art. I like the character design. I like the dialogue. I like what it's trying to do with the story. The one issue that I have with it is the plotting, because there are moments where there's so much going on in this book, and this book takes place over such a long period of time, I guess, or um, I don't know how to. I don't necessarily want to say it takes place over a long period of time, but there are moments where it like panel to panel will jump, and there's a clear sort of delineation in the amount of time that has passed, or like what has transpired. Like you'll get 3 panels and like, oh, that was a whole fight. Now we're on to the next thing. Um, so we had the book Black, which was the same artist, and it's still visually stunning, like the way that he does his characters and everything. But I think the guys that wrote this didn't give him enough to work with, and there, like I said, there's points where it just sort of jumps ahead, and you're like, whoa, wait, what happened? I missed, I'm missing pages here or panels where there should
Yeah.
have been other stuff going on here. Um, but other than that, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I like the character designs. I like the conversations that happen between the characters. Um, just the whole like ninjutsu sort of subculture. Like I like that idea, similar to the way that it's done with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where like that culture is sort of infected New York, right? And it's its own underground. It's the same in this
Yeah.
book. Like it exists as its own sort of underground. They have their own clan, um, and it's interesting. It's really cool. Russ, your thoughts?
Well, okay. So I like the original series. Uh, I didn't like this as much, maybe because it wasn't original. It seemed it wasn't as original to me. It takes place in the same universe. It to me is an anime inspired story in this universe. That's what it seemed to me. And in that anime inspired story, some things got lost in the translation and weren't as well explained, which goes to what you said about the plotting,
Okay.
right? How did we get here? Because sometimes, you go through some anime and you don't really know how we got here, but you just roll with it, right? Because it's still entertaining. I felt like that's some of that happened here. All right. This is not to say it's a bad book. This is not to say I didn't. I like the art. I like the original. I'm okay with the art, but I liked it, but I'm not in love with it. I like the original characters. I like the posing of some of the characters when they do what they do. But I still felt like I was missing some things, and story wise, that would help me make it more immersive for me, which I did not get. It's worth a read, definitely. Uh, uh, and there's a lot here. There's a lot in the universe. If you haven't read the first book, there's probably too much here. There's a lot here because you had to explain the whole thing about this universe that only black people can get superpowers, right?
Right.
And what the world looks like because of that. If we have because we read the other book, so as Matt said, there's a lot here, and some of it you might gloss through, or likely to gloss through, because it doesn't take you through it. It doesn't hold your hand, in my opinion, well enough through the series, through the book. That being said, I did enjoy the book. I did enjoy the concept. I probably will not read the next book uh, because maybe because I think it's just not going to give me. I felt it was missing something. Was missing for me. It's a lot of high concept stuff, but it was not cohesive enough for me. Right? It didn't take me through it. Okay, now go here. Now go here. Oh, check out this. Okay, now go here. And it didn't give me that. It's sort of I had to find my way, and I kept getting lost or kept having to move forward without enough information. So that is what was missing for me, but it was worth a read, definitely.
Yeah, I think this is probably a solid because it's only 4 issues, but a solid
Mhm.
trade. Um, and it gives you enough, especially if you're into like Naruto or that style of anime. Um, I'm forgetting what it's called. I'm having a brain fart, but it's got its own genre name, and like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that falls into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this book, I don't know, I'd say it's a buy on the trade level. Maybe not for the single issue, but overall, yeah, I'd say it was good.
Okay. Emmanuel, you got more to say about it?
Just one of the things that we've seen before in developing superpowers, there tends to be a semblance to like a specific animal or insect in this case. The
Mm-hmm.
guy, his quirk, one of the
Quirk.
assassins, his quirk was housefly. And typically on its face, you wouldn't think that would work.
Mhm.
But I mean, you can fly, you're nimble, you're quick, but you age really quickly as well. So that was interesting. And the main character, the one whose face is on the cover, if I'm not mistaken, is her quirk is I think it's a her. Her quirk is the spider.
Mhm.
So she goes by Anansi, which Anansi was one of my and still is one of my favorite folklore characters. I remember when I was a kid picking up the Anansi stories just in a random library and falling in love with that character, which informs one of the reasons why I like Spider Man so much. There was an issue where Spider Man went through multiple universes to find people that were imbued with other spider powers, and he
Mhm.
happened upon an African who went by Anansi.
Right.
And I loved that. I loved that. So that was one of the primary pulls for this book for me was the whole quirk aspect, and you get a similar quirk based on whatever insect or animal your powers bond with. So
There was
that's a
uh have you read or watched American Gods?
I have.
I
Have you
ha-
read the book?
I haven't read the book.
Okay,
I've watched it.
There's a spinoff Anansi book that I would suggest you read.
Okay.
You already know the character, you already know the world. It takes
Yes.
place in that world, and it may take place before the series or whatnot. But anyway, there's a spinoff, a Nazi book. It's the only other book in that series that currently exists. It's American Gods, and then the spinoff book, and it's just a Nazi. I think it's called a Nazi Boys.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that. Neil Gaiman's
I, I,
stories.
I,
Yeah.
I recommend that to you because you already have an affinity and you've already seen the series. That may be right up your alley. And I'm sure the library will let you just get it and not pay any money because who wants to spend money? It's still 2020 for a few more days.
Right. All right. Well, that's all 6 issues. Unless we've got any final thoughts on Black as Fuck.
You just said it. Good on you. No further questions, sir.
All right.
All right.
We did have a couple of things here in the round table at the
Mhm.
end. So I had posted the Justice League, the 10 most important stories ranked.
Mm-hmm.
And number 9 was The Brave and the Bold, number 28, which was the issue that I brought.
Mm-hmm.
But also on this list, Kingdom Come, which is
Yes.
an excellent Alex Ross story.
Mm-hmm.
JLA Year One, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
not familiar with. Are you guys familiar with that one?
Yeah. So JLA Year One is another retelling of the origin, and instead of Wonder Woman, you have Black Canary. It's retelling it though, and this is the series I talked about where they were like, "Dang, that Martian Manhunter got another power." This is the series that does that. So I think you would definitely enjoy it. It's a simpler Justice League than you would expect.
Number 6 is the Tower of Babel, which is
Classic.
yeah, one of the issues that Emmanuel brought on was part of that series. Number 5 is A New Beginning, which I guess this was after Crisis.
Yeah, this is the Bwahaha Justice League.
Okay.
This is the Booster Gold and Blue Beetle teaming up Justice League. This is the time where there's one issue in here which to me is classic, in which this particular Green Lantern, what's his name, with the shaved hair,
Oh,
Guy Gardner.
yeah, Guy
Gardner,
Gardner.
Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner is tired of taking mess from Batman, right? And he's like, "Come on, Batman, you and me, right? All right." And I was like, and he's like, "I don't even need this ring." He takes the ring off, once up to Batman. Batman just, and he's out, right? And Flash is like, "One punch. Oh my God."
I mean, Guy Gardner's always been a punk, though.
Yeah. But anyway, and this introduced Maxwell Lord, who became later a supervillain, is actually in the latest Wonder Woman series. This is Shazam being. This basically was a Justice League without Superman or Wonder Woman.
Okay.
So without their hold, because Wonder Woman make you stand up straight. You know what I mean? Because he's there, right? Superman because you respect him. Everybody else, who else makes you stand up straight? So if you're just kind of a lazy superhero and you ain't got no Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman, may come and scare you, but Batman ain't there all the time, right? This was a different kind of Justice League. This is when they went Justice League International. They had a Justice League Europe. They had a Justice League Capital in France, and different groups and different heroes. It's a different time. They're not as heroic as what you remember, but there's much more character.
Mm.
All right,
Yeah.
I went too far on that. Continue.
Well, I was just gonna skip down towards the end. So number 3 is Identity Crisis.
Not my favorite.
Yeah. Number 2 is World War III,
Mhm.
which was a 6-issue Grant Morrison run.
Mhm.
And then number 1, Snapper Carr, Super Trader.
Yeah, I think that's straight up BS. This should not be here. There's nothing about this that make you say this is in any way definitive or acceptable. And don't get me wrong, I am tickled by the idea of Snapper Carr being included, but this is not seminal Justice League work. This is not something you need, and it's certainly not the best one. Better than Kingdom Come? Are you
Right.
serious?
Right. Yeah. Kingdom Come's number 10. Get the fuck
Yeah.
out of here.
So whoever this guy needs to be destroyed. He doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. But anyway,
How do you
yeah.
snap when you're sad? I'm just trying to imagine Snapper
If you have a
Carr's
nervous
reaction.
thing and you lick your lips, you just lick your lips, right? You don't do it intentionally.
Yeah.
You just lick your lips. If you're a snapper car, you just intentionally you don't even think about it. Your hands are just snapping.
Interesting.
So
All right.
it's not like it's a superpower. It's a nervous thing, like a tick.
We got a couple other links in
Yeah.
here
So Humble Bundle has a Image Comics bundle,
for the next 10
which I highly
days.
recommend. What's that?
For the next 10 days, it's
For the
active.
next 10 days. There is a lot here. If you
So,
get the high, you can pay the $20 to get everything, but there probably are 100 issues here,
oh,
maybe more.
yeah, way
We're
more.
talking all more.
I think there's more
Huh?
than 100 issues. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's volumes, it's
Yeah,
trades.
yes, entire trade paperbacks. Chew, which we brought up here, Jupiter's Legacy, which we brought up here, uh, uh, Bitterroot, which I intended to bring up sooner or later. There's Savage Dragon.
Yeah,
There's just a lot here.
Luther
Uh,
Strode.
right? The Mage, which I think is classic, and none of us ever brought that up. You know, the guy. That's worth owning just for that alone to me. That's very classic. I'm actually considering paying some money and
I
because for
s-
$20, this is for me. If I went to a Comic-Con and there were all these trade paperbacks and they were sitting there and say for $20 you can have them all, I'd take my money. In fact, let me get them all again for my friend, right? Because this is so much book. If I were to stack this,
oh my god,
right,
yeah.
it would be above my head here on this table. So there's a lot here, a lot of good books, a lot of classic, and Image does a lot of humble bundles, which I like.
I feel
And we
like
do a lot of Image comics in this podcast.
yeah,
So
I
I
feel like
recommend it.
if you had all these physically, that would be a very respectable image collection.
It would,
Yeah.
yes.
um, I saw this and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I gotta send this to Russ, and then you had already
Mhm.
posted the link in the show notes, so I
That's
was like,
right.
okay,
So there's a lot here. There's a lot, and it's not Marvel or DC. So you're going to have a lot of unique stories that go in a lot of unique directions that Marvel and DC wouldn't dare do. That's one of the great things that Image brings. So anyway, there's going to be a link in the show notes. If you get it in time, please consider checking it out. We don't get any money from this, but we do recommend it and think it's a great opportunity.
yeah, all right. There's a Screen Rant article about Spider-Man. I don't know who posted that.
Yeah, I posted that because it falls in line with the ongoing conversation we're having about how Batman is useless, how he's perpetually doing the same thing and perpetuating all of these villains to keep coming back and from Arkham. He locks them up, beats them up, but then they keep coming back. So the same could be said in a sense for Spider-Man, how his moniker or his mantra of with great power comes great responsibility. No one has told you to take this responsibility upon yourself to go out and change the world. You're doing more harm than good in a certain aspect. So one of his friends, Harry Osborn, this spoiler for issue number 54, the great villain, he has a showdown, and you know how villains love to do their super villain speech. This really puts Peter Parker in his place about how with great power comes great responsibility, but your friends and your life is worse because you're Spider-Man. And it's different because it's not internal. Peter Parker has always had this struggle about, well, woe is me. My life is bad because I'm Spider-Man. But this is coming from an outside source, seeing and being a victim of his hubris. Just, I think this was one of the first times that this actually, maybe not one of the first times that this has actually been spoken of by someone else outside of him.
Yeah, I
But
think
it's
it's
notable
I
enough.
agree. Spider-Man's friends get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
They're not, I don't have any powers, right? How many times has Aunt May been in danger, right? How many times has Mary Jane been kidnapped? How many times had, his other girlfriend got killed? Spider-Man, if you are close to Spider-Man, you're jacked up, right?
Yeah.
It is better to not be a friend to Peter Parker at all. He is not a good friend. He
Yeah,
loves you, but he is put you in danger and make these decisions about what's best when he's still it's like a boy with superpowers, like a kid with superpowers. He's still making kid decisions, but he doesn't think about how it might affect you. He just does what he does to do and hope you survive it, right? Betty Brant, Ned Leeds. I can name all these Spider-Man characters that have had a jacked up life simply because of their association. Every time
They're in
you
his
start a
orbit.
new Spider-Man book and he gets a new supporting cast, a certain percentage of them are going to die, and a certain percentage of them are going to go evil, and a certain percentage are going to be hurt or altering. Batman, only people that get hurt in Batman are people who put on the mask. Right? I mean, the only people, nobody that knows Bruce Wayne gets hurt.
Right.
It's just the people that puts on the mask.
Right. Yeah.
Superman protects all his people. Right? Ain't nobody, Jimmy Olsen, which is another Snapper Car character, in my opinion. Right? Jimmy Olsen should be killed 1,000 times over, right? Lois Lane and her loudmouth should have been, but Superman protects his own, right? Whether you have powers or not. Spider-Man, you will get jacked up. He hurts everybody.
True.
Right? I don't love Spider. I remember when I said I like Spider-Man, but I hate Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I hate Peter Parker. But anyway, that's what that brings up for me.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting concept because he doesn't have to be Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to use his powers the way that he does. He
Mhm.
chooses to. And I think there's an argument to be made that because he chooses to use his powers, that the world is probably a better place for most everybody. It's just unfortunate that those close to him are affected, right?
All right. And how many times have Venom eaten people's brains because he had to go and be Spider-Man? How many lives has Venom taken?
So I don't know. Yeah, it was an interesting article.
But yeah, I agree with some of that. Yeah.
Last one here. DC, 10 times the Justice League went too far.
Oh, there's some that's not even on here. That would be better than some of this other stuff here. Go ahead. Yeah.
You guys
One
wanna
of the
run down
ones
the
that's
list?
one of the ones that's not on the list is that time Wonder Woman took Maxwell Lord's head and twisted it and broke it.
Jeez.
Right? You remember that straight up murder? Like Maxwell Lord had mental powers and he took over Superman and was using Superman to kill. And the only woman could stop him, she could think, not magic lasso. He was like, you can magic lasso me if you want, but one day I'm gonna get out and then I'm gonna kill everybody. Right? You can't magic lasso me forever. And she's like, well, right. I'm like, dang, Wonder Woman is the agent of truth and peace. And she straightened up murder, but that's not on this list. See, I think this CBR, their lists suck. Right? They got some stuff on here like the CW show is #1 because they reformed the multiverse. CW show is not a shining beacon of DC Comics. It's just a CW version of these things.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm just not giving them canon. They can exist as a stupid version of their universe if they want, but I'm not giving them all this. I think they got their own multiverse. I don't think they're messing with ours.
Yeah.
And then how does CW going to be like we Earth 1? Really? I'll give you Earth 27 maybe. Earth 1 and Earth 2. But there are some things on here. A lot of it is about changing reality. And a lot of it is about elitism in the Justice League. Because, Cyborg wasn't originally a Justice League member. He was a Teen Titans member.
Right.
But they needed a black character. They didn't have a Falcon. Who do they have? Who can you put in Justice League that's black? Right? That's not all white male except for Wonder Woman. Who could you put in there if you didn't put in? Right? You have nobody.
Yeah.
Black Lightning wouldn't do it. Black Lightning says.
I mean, John Stewart, but
Yeah, but then again, you already got the original Green Lantern is Hal Jordan.
Right.
John Stewart was introduced as a replacement, as a backup Green Lantern in case Hal Jordan was somewhere else. That's what he always was. That's what his original incarnation was, just to be there, just in case Hal Jordan's not available.
yeah. What's the Far Sector girl? What's her name?
Can't remember. She's too new. But I do know in the new upcoming DC books where they take place in the future state, she's going to be the Green Lantern of that Justice League.
Nice. Okay.
So, and then of course, they introduced a new Latina Wonder Woman.
No, I didn't know this.
Oh yes, Yara Flor, something like that. So she's going to be the Wonder Woman of that future, but she starts in South America, I believe, something like that. And CW has already said we're going to make a series on her.
So
We got it.
how is she? She's
Ah, you asking me to tell you the story of a comic book not yet created?
no,
Sorry,
but
sir, I can't.
I'm not saying. I'm just asking the question. Like, how is
Okay.
she Amazonian if she's
Well, Amazonians can come from anywhere. Who knows? And didn't say she was Amazonian. I said she was Wonder Woman
okay? Well, I would think that those two are linked, right?
because that's all you know. But maybe not.
Okay,
Right?
fair
But
enough.
in the future, like I said, we got the non-binary Jesse Quick. Right? You got to. Who knows what is happening? Right?
Whatever happened to the Asian Superman?
He's
Super
still
Dash
there.
Man instead of
Yeah,
Superman.
he's Chinese, and so we're not really reading that stuff right now. Right? I mean, no one's putting any book. It
No, I'm
didn't
just
sell
making a
enough
point. Like
copies. Yeah, he's there.
how Superman is Kryptonian,
Hmm.
but not. He doesn't have to be because we have the Asian Superman. So
Well, the Asian
they're probably doing
Superman
the same
doesn't.
thing with Wonder
I,
Woman.
no, I think no. The Asian Superman, I think they have some Kryptonian DNA. There's something similar what they did with that Superboy. He's not full on Kryptonian. He has some similar powers, but there's limits. He's just, they came up with their own versions of every member of the Justice League. They have their own Fat Batman, right? They have their own Wonder Woman ish. They have their own Flash. Have you seen him? He's like a
No,
fat
I haven't seen
samurai
the fat.
Batman without the sword. They got their own Justice League. If you're interested, a Super Dash
Yeah,
Man, that's still a series. And I know you have an affinity for those discontinued series. So take a look.
I do.
All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up for the week?
No, sir.
And on that head shaking note, we're out.
Coming to America guy has a son. How come Black Panther don't have a son?
He did, and there was a movie where they had the kids of the Justice or the Avengers.
Yeah.
Would it
They had to like save their parents.
would it be a child with
Hey.
Storm or who?
Ah, good question. In that movie is with Storm, but you'll be happy to do. Remember, Matt, you may remember this, a series called A Next that took place in a possible future.